Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. My name is Vikas Pota, and as part of my efforts to meet and share really interesting conversations that I've had with friends all around the world, I put together this live stream where yesterday I spoke to someone who I consider a mentor of mine, Fernando Remias from Harvard, speak to have a very wide-ranging discussion on various aspects of education. Today, I want to invite and introduce you to another friend of mine who is doing remarkable work in Africa, in a country called Ghana, in West Africa, where he is the founder and CEO of Lead for Ghana. Lead for Ghana is an affiliate of the Teach for All network. And at the beginning of the year, I joined the Africa Advisory Board for Teach for All. And it's in that context that I've gotten to know him. But prior to that, in my last role, Daniel and Lead for Ghana were one of the entities that we funded to get off the ground. And so I'm really pleased with the journey that he has made and the organization has made. And I wanted to have a specific discussion with him about various things. So please welcome Daniel Dotse to this live stream. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you very much, Vikas. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence, and I'm looking forward to a very insightful and fruitful conversation today.
So what we try to do, Daniel, in these conversations is the audience is primarily made up of teachers and school leaders from around the world. On the Facebook group, as you know, we have some nearly 30,000 teachers, and many from Africa, but also the majority aren't from Africa. I want to start off with asking you about the impact of COVID on Africa and in particular on Ghana. I know that you've just come in from school visits that you've made. So tell us in terms of what you see.
I think I see two things, and this is from the recent school visit that I did to a couple of our schools in the northern part of Ghana. I see tremendous hope. I've seen innovation, I've seen dedication, I have seen just sheer leadership being demonstrated. At the same time, I have seen inequality gaps widen. I have seen social vices increasing. So I've seen both ends. And to give a little bit context to our viewers and listeners, within Ghana, 40% of Ghanaians have access to internet. So by default means 60% don't. And the 40% are mostly located in urban areas or high social economic communities. So when the pandemic happened, and I think most countries shifted to virtual learning, and Ghana also shifted to virtual learning, what that meant is by default, 60% of the population was left behind. And most of that 60% were low income community, which is quite a huge number. So because of that, we've had more kids not being able to access and learn during this period, which is the sad part. But I think I've also seen some teachers, especially within the Lead for Ghana, been very innovative during this period. I've seen innovations from teachers calling parents and staying on the phone for 10, 15 minutes, trying to engage their students through that medium. We've seen teachers go to the homes of their students, print out exercises, take it to their homes, and try to teach them from that level. We've seen teachers innovation in terms of bringing maybe 5 or 6 students together, teaching them at a time, and trying to transfer knowledge that way. So even though the pandemic is happening, you can see a lot of dedication and innovation, and teachers just trying to do their best to ensure that kids are still learning during this period. And I think that's one of the things that gives me a lot of hope.
I mean, Daniel, Ghana is a middle-income country, if I'm not mistaken. Can you tell us a little bit about, even beyond COVID, before COVID struck, what the situation was with regards to the quality of education in your country?
I think Ghana is one of those countries, and I mean, in West Africa, Ghana is known to be an education hub. So we have a lot of our colleagues from the West African countries coming into the country to benefit from education in the region. So in terms of education, there's some kind of positive influence there. That being said, the quality of education in Ghana, I think there's more that can be done to bring it to a level where kids can truly benefit from it and be so that the education be useful to them, their community, and the country. Well, if I can start with statistics around the pipeline, and this is statistics coming from the Ghana Education Service and the World Bank and USAID combined. About 91% of children in Ghana start primary school. But as they go down the pipeline, 16% end up at a university. So the global average for number of kids entering school is about 88, 90%. So at the beginning, we are doing very well because we have universal education for everyone. But when you come to the university and who is making it to university, the numbers dwindle very low. That being said, recently the government decided to make senior secondary school education free, which meant that kids from the basic school can go into secondary school without facing some kind of financial barrier that would prevent them from doing that. So in the coming years, we expect a huge influx of these kids getting to university. So the number of 16% should increase. However, the question is, there's a difference between quality of education and just pushing kids through a pipeline because you want the percentage to increase. And I think it's that quality part that we need to focus on and do a better job. Because kids that are coming out of school from the university level and the senior secondary school level, you can really tell that there's a gap in there. That some of them are now, well trained to compete at a global level, or to make them truly global citizens. So these are some of the barriers that existed before COVID, and these barriers were more prevalent in low socioeconomic communities. After COVID, or during COVID that we are in now, it's just so obvious that gap is increasing faster. Because a lot of kids have been left behind due to transition to virtual learning, and we are not seeing enough activity happening for kids that don't have access to internet and devices.
And so, I mean, when you look at Ghana being an education hub, and you're very much describing what many systems in the world are also experiencing with regards to the inequality gap widening as a result of COVID. You're talking about the challenges with regards to financing of the education sector. So these are not necessarily unique to you. And so in that regard, can I just ask you in terms of, people have a perception about Africa, and you and I have discussed this in the past. Where would, what is the role of technology in your context? Does it apply? Given sometimes people describe the context as being very challenging. What is the role of technology that you've seen play in the delivery of education over the last 6 months?
I think technology plays a huge role. I think one of the devices or mediums that have really helped during this time is also technology. And when I talk about technology, I'm not just talking about the internet and the computer. I'm talking about all forms of technology, be it radio, television, and so forth. Because through the radio and television, more kids have been reached during the pandemic. So I think it's enabling the education sector to really understand that one of the ways of scaling knowledge, one of the ways of sharing knowledge, one of the ways of taking best practices and democratizing it is by leveraging technology. I think it's more clear now than ever. And I think any school system or an education system that has not latched onto this technology frontier is really going to be left behind. So we all know the value of technology in education. I don't think there's a doubt about it. I think the challenge here, again, is the internet penetration rates. Because if we know technology is great, but only 40% of the population has access to internet, or few people have access to radio and television, there isn't much you can do. So I think this becomes a challenge to the telco companies and some companies in the private sector to really step up and really make sure that more people have access to the internet. And if you look at statistics, the mobile penetration rate in Africa is moving very fast, right? So there's momentum there. It's just a matter of taking advantage of the momentum and making sure more people have access to basic things. I mean, internet today should be as basic as having access to water or electricity. It should be a very basic thing that everybody should have. So I think we need to be very radical, very bold, very ambitious in making sure that everybody has access to the internet and no one is being left behind.
And so when you think about the context that you have, unlike other Teach for All affiliates, you changed your name from Teach for Ghana to Lead for Ghana. And tell us a little bit about that. And because I want to ask you a series of questions regarding how we develop school leadership and the lessons you've learned, because your program is about that.
Yes, well, we love the name Teach for Ghana. It did amazing things for us. That decision was more on a branding perspective more than anything else, because Lead for Ghana is a leadership development organization. Our theory of change is to develop the next generation of leaders in Ghana that would transform the educational system. So we noticed we're spending a lot of time explaining to people that we are a leadership development organization when the name did not directly correlate with the name Teach for Ghana. So we just switched it just to make sure that the name we had directly correlated with exactly what the organization was doing, and also appeal to a young demographic that is looking to play leadership role. That's one. The other thing too is we have two convictions, right? Our first conviction is education is a silver bullet solution to all societal problems. If you solve education, everything else will fall in place. The second conviction is excellent teachers are excellent leaders. So the idea of Lead for Ghana means every teacher is a leader. If you're in a classroom and you're demonstrating leadership, you're doing it for the country. So those are the two things that really informed the rebranding of the organization. I think we've had very positive response to that brand name.
I mean, so tell us a little bit about how do we develop school leaders? I mean, it seems to be a real big subject that, in my observation, at least, as I travel the world and actually attend a lot of Zoom calls around the world nowadays,
yeah.
It strikes me as it's an area that it isn't really focused on that much. And so tell us how we actually develop school leadership, given your context.
Great question. Before I even dive into that, I think it's important for us to define leadership, because I think different people have different definitions of what leadership means. For Lead for Ghana as an organization, the way we define leadership for ourselves is leveraging our talents, our skill sets, and empathy to galvanize and inspire a group of people towards a common cause. So that's the basics that we are working from. So if we move into a school, the first thing we look at is, what are the challenges that exist in this particular school? And how can we galvanize existing teachers and existing systems to solve that particular challenge? So it's a very solution-driven approach. And the way we've done that is to really expose people to the challenges, right? If you want to learn something, you can only learn by doing, right? So the way we are developing our leaders or the education leaders is to really expose them to the challenges that exist in the educational system and challenge them to come up with solutions to them. In the journey of coming up with solutions to these challenges, they learn a lot about themselves, and they learn a lot about their students, they learn a lot about their school system, and they learn a lot about their communities. So when they get into leadership positions, the decisions they're making is coming from experience and it's coming from empathy, as opposed to the decisions that being made are much more theoretical. So that's our theory of change. It's more like, how do we expose these young people? How do we expose them to really, understand the educational challenges that exist in the country firsthand before they even get into a leadership position to make decisions that affect entire school systems and so forth. And just to add on to that, we take the classroom as our unit of execution, because it's very clear that to demonstrate leadership, you have to be able to motivate and influence people to take a desired action, right? So if we are getting into a classroom, we're trying to measure how are our teachers motivating and influencing our students to take ownership of their own learning journey. So for example, and I think most teachers probably know this, the importance of a starter activity when you get into the classroom. When you walk into the classroom, being able to read a classroom and even starting a very simple exercise that excites the kids, gives them the ability to start getting excited about the subject. Once they get excited about a subject, you can then leverage on that momentum to influence them in a direction where they can actually begin to own their learning process. Another example is the importance of home visits. Now, it's very clear that students don't, or children don't care about what you're teaching them if they don't think you care about them, and they know that. So importance of home visits demonstrate to these students that you care about them, because you probably know where they live, you know their parents, you know their siblings, you know their socioeconomic background. So they pay more attention to you because they know that you've invested in them. So that becomes the importance of home visits and empathy. But to go just circle back to your question, it's just about exposing these young people to to the challenges that exist in the educational system, and providing them with the tools to come up with solutions to change the course of children and their own lives.
And in terms of what success are you seeing? I mean, so it's interesting that a lot of people can speak about leadership all day long, frankly speaking.
Yeah.
So as an organization, you've actually invested in the process. And tell us in terms of some of the metrics or some of the success you're seeing by way of example. So tell me about teachers who have done fantastically well as a result of your programming, and how it works for the kids in the classroom.
Great question. I mean, we are lucky enough that the government of Ghana has something called a basic education certificate examination, where every child at grade 9 has to write this examination, and that determines which secondary school they go to, or the quality of the secondary school systems they go to. So that is an outside examination that Lead for Ghana has no control over, because that's the data collected by the government. There is a particular school, a couple of schools that we entered before Lead for Ghana placed our teachers in this particular school. No student had passed favorably this exam to get into secondary school for almost 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
We placed 2 Lead for Ghana, and in any country, some of these schools will probably be closed down. We placed 2 Lead for Ghana fellows in this particular school, and within 2 years, we got between 25 to 30 students getting into secondary school for the first time. So there is a direct return on investment of before Lead for Ghana and after Lead for Ghana. And this is something we are seeing across all our schools. So we have that academic achievement part, but we are also taking measuring mindset development. And the way we're doing mindset development is by exposure. So we take some of our students from some of these low socioeconomic places, take them to some of the best senior secondary schools that exist in the country. They're able to interact with the students on the high school campus. They talk to the teachers on the high school campus. When they go back to school, they have a vision. They have something to work towards. Because when you start telling them you need to study hard to get to senior high school, before then they couldn't connect that, because most of them had never even seen a high school before. But now, once you expose them to a high school environment, expose them to what is possible, the dream becomes tangible. And we've seen a direct correlation between exposure to their dreams and the next step and their academic achievement. We've also seen a lot of improvement with parent engagement, in the sense that most parents took their first child to school, took their second child to school, did not see any return on investment or did not see any benefit in that particular child. So they're contemplating, why will I take my third child to school if the first 2 kids, I didn't see anything, I didn't see any of the benefits of education with them. But now when we do home visits, the parents are very much engaged, because for the first time, there's a teacher in front of them who cares deeply about their child as much as they care about that particular child. So it's giving them that hope that there is something positive in education, and they're actually also seeing the development in their children. So beyond academic achievement of getting more kids, through the educational pipeline, we are seeing the mindset development shift within our students, but we also see a mindset development shift within the parents of our students. I think that's what gives us a lot of hope for the future of Ghana as far as education is concerned.
So Daniel, one of the things that I used to look for when I used to run a foundation was the impact on systems. And so I understand the program that you have and the great work it's doing, but how much of it is influencing the Ghana Education Service to also think about various things that you're doing and looking at incorporating some of these ideas, some of this vision into their policy formulation process and beyond? Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing I've also noticed that system change takes a lot of time. It's one of the things that has become very clear to us. It became very clear to us at a school system level, because once we get into the school system, it takes us close to about 2 years to really start seeing the benefits of the inputs that we've made in that particular school. And it's going to take some time for us to make some drastic changes in the Ghana education system itself. However, that being said, I think there are a few things that are beginning to happen that is giving us a lot of hope. At the end of July, we matriculated our third group of alumni into the Lead for Ghana Alumni Network. And the Lead for Ghana Alumni Network, these guys are the true system changers, right? And we've been able to get about between 80 to 100 people now. So we have a critical mass of people who have started working in various roles within the system and are beginning to make small incremental changes. But beyond that, the current Minister of Education is someone who is quite accessible and also quite radical and open-minded in terms of the changes that he wants to make. So it helps us that we kind of sometimes just share the things that we are doing with the existing teachers in our schools. We share some of this information with district directors so that they're able to leverage on this to also make systemic changes for a wider school system. So, for example, we now have schools approaching us to get Lead for Ghana fellows into their schools. We have schools approaching us to host training sessions for head teachers, so that whatever skills that we are using in our schools is being transferred to other schools within the communities that we serve. So we're seeing very impactful but small gains at this very early stage. But I think the long-term change would happen probably in the next decade, when we have a lot of the Lead for Ghana alumni in very influential leadership position in education. So they become the true drivers of policy and systems changing at that level, because they will have gone through the program, they'll have taught before, they will have experienced different kinds of challenges within the educational system. So in the next decade, we expect to see a very huge change. But in the short term, we're seeing some things that are giving us promise or giving us hope for the future.
Thank you, Daniel, in terms of agreeing to come on to this live stream. I want to ask you to conclude this discussion. We all take inspiration from people that we're aware of, have read about, see in the news sometimes. Who are the leaders that inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, a few of the leaders that have really inspired me, I would say, well, 4 people, but 3 of them are no longer alive, but that's fine. Kofi Annan. Kofi Annan was the former UN Secretary General. I think was probably one of the finest diplomatic people that I've ever learned about, and I'm lucky to say I was alive to witness what his work entailed. The other one is Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first president of Ghana as well, and a very instrumental individual in the formation of the African Union, and also helping a lot of African countries gain independence on the continent, who's a huge inspiration for me. The other one is Steve Jobs. I just loved what he did with Apple and being able to revolutionize almost 3 industries, and to do it in such a short span was quite inspiring for me. And the fourth person is my mother. She's an incredible woman, run really good, successful businesses, very ambitious, very inspiring, very driven. She operates from a mindset of anything is possible if you put your energy, time, and focus on it. So these are the 4 individuals that have really inspired me.
And the final question, I promise you, is if there was a book that you'd recommend that we all read on leadership, which one would it be?
Wow, that's a tough one. That's a really, really tough one. I mean, I would say probably read the biographies of all the individuals that I've mentioned. Tell their life story.
I think that, Daniel, that's a cop out.
No, it really isn't. For me, these are the.
Okay. Let me ask you another question then. In terms of what has been your favorite book of all time?
Well, if I tell you, you're probably gonna. I have a couple of them, but around
the first one,
just
one, just one.
I would say the biography of Steve Jobs.
Which one?
Yeah, Steve Jobs. The title is Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson.
Fantastic. So, Daniel, I owe you a huge thanks for not just for today, but for your friendship and your partnership, especially with regards to the very large T4 conference that we collectively put on, and also for World Education Week, which is coming up in October, where we've seen some really excellent Ghanaian applications and nominations come through on schools. So I want to thank you for promoting the week and say a profound thanks on behalf of the team for everything that you do and your support. So thank you all very much, and I hope you all have a great weekend. And you should go to the Facebook page or the Facebook group, and there's a bunch of questions that have been asked whilst you've been speaking, Daniel. And perhaps you could answer some of these questions. So someone over here has asked your definition of leadership that you spoke of at the beginning. If you could just provide that, that would be useful. So if you can copy and paste that in a Facebook comment on this thread, that would be very useful.
Absolutely.
Well, once again, thank you so much, and I look forward to the next opportunity of speaking with you.
Absolutely, and thank you, Vickers. It's always a pleasure engaging with you, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming conference. I'm very excited for it, and kudos to all teachers in the world for the amazing work you're doing, especially during this difficult time for all of us. Cheers.